In other news this morning, the aunt of those 13 siblings who were held captive for years in their parents' filthy California home is speaking out on camera for the first time. She says a long time ago, back when she was in college, she lived with her sister and brother-in-law for a few months and admits something about their parenting just wasn't quite right.
I thought they were really strict, but I didn't see any type of abuse, you know.
I heard that you said that your brother-in-law at the time made you uncomfortable.
Yes.
How so?
Well, like if I went to get in the shower, he would come in there while I was in there and watch me, and it was like a joke. Now that I'm an adult and I look back, I see things that I didn't see then. I've asked for 20 years to be able to Skype them. I don't want them to know that they do have family that they love, whether they know us or not.
I want you to have
that love them.
Police in California crediting that brave 17-year-old girl who escaped from captivity for saving her brothers and sisters. They say nobody from law enforcement or children's services had ever been called to the home. And what they found when they got there was horrifying.
There's a very foul smell inside the residence. It was extremely dirty, and as we reported previously, many of the children were malnourished. If you can imagine being 17 years old and appearing to be a 10-year-old, being chained to a bed, being malnourished, and injuries associated with that, I would call that torture.
With me now, retired FBI agent and law enforcement analyst James Gagliano and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor for Riverside County's Child Abuse Unit, Ambrosio Rodriguez. Thanks to both of you for being with me. Ambrosio, I want to start with you because you've been connected to this county and this city, Perris, California. Why didn't anyone notice?
I think the Turpins were very good at avoiding detection. I mean, Mr. Turpin is an educated man. I mean, obviously he had a plan. This, to me, is and I had a case very similar to this a long time ago. I mean, this was kind of a cult that he built, and he used his family to create a cult. There had to be some kind of dogma that he had in order to control them. Don't forget, there was only 2 parents involved. They had 13 children. They had to kind of install the abuse that went on for decades on the children one at a time. So they did a very good job of avoiding.
Just hiding what they were doing? So James, you're an investigator. Is that possible?
Sure. It's difficult, Carol, to fathom or understand how this could have been kept under a neighbor's noses that lived, a mere, few feet away from their backyard and their front yard. And to hear the sister of the wife telling her story, it's maddening to me. It's sad, but it's maddening. We have Fourth Amendment protections in this country. You're seated next to a distinguished attorney, and he can certainly speak to that. We're protected from unlawful searches and seizures, but there are mechanisms in place. And in a post-9/11 world, if you see something, say something is so important here. You could have called, in this instance, the Sheriff's Department, and there are many different ways that deputies or law enforcement investigators could have gained access under a pretext or a ruse to gather the probable cause, then to get a search warrant. It's absolutely maddening that those children were kept in those conditions for that long. And we've seen pictures and we've seen video of them actually being out of the house, how they were brought into and out of the house under everyone's eyes and noses, and how that wasn't detected. Very, very frustrating. Sad and frustrating. We're thankful that nobody thus far has been determined has been killed in this ordeal.
But Ambrosio, neighbors did notice some strange things. They noticed the children out, like, putting down sod at 9 o'clock at night under floodlights. They noticed that the children were pale and seemed undernourished. So somebody did notice something.
Yes, but not enough to call the police. I mean, look, we live at a time we don't really get to know our neighbors. Look, Perris, that community, most people there are new arrivals. This is a city that went through a big boom during the last housing boom, went through the kind of the center of all the bankruptcies. And so everybody was new, people that didn't really know each other, and we tend not to know our neighbors anymore. Most of us just don't. And it wasn't enough to call the police. People don't want to get involved.
Okay,
so there was suspicious behavior, but not enough.
I do understand that. I want to focus on the sister-in-law and what she said this morning on Good Morning America. And I'll throw this question to you, James. So the sister-in-law said, yeah, when I was a drunk, my brother-in-law used to come in and watch me take a shower, and it was a joke. I'm sorry, if my brother-in-law came in and watched me take a shower, I'd be on the phone. Well, first of all, I would have a very serious conversation with my husband, and then I would probably call the police because that's not normal. And then the sister-in-law said that she was kept away from her sister's family for years with no contact. They noticed something was wrong.
The level of depravity in this case, it is mind-numbing. It's stupefying, and I can only say this: I know it must pain the sister-in-law to now come forward and say these things. But again, in regards to reporting things like this, and I understand my esteemed colleague there, the views that sometimes people don't want to get involved, but there are protections in place. It's called anonymity, which can be afforded to them. Law enforcement and investigative teams have a number of different tools under pretext that somebody from CPS, from Child Protective Services, from a local sheriff's department, from the FBI that works crimes against children. This instance, we have 13 instances of that. Somebody could have at least gone and done a knock and talk, as we call. And then once that happened, maybe there was some evidence that they would have seen in plain view where they could have worked or gotten a search warrant, which would have required that probable cause.
All right, I have to leave it there. Ambrosio Rodriguez, James Gagliano, thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Right now.